Hello everyone, today I'm in the mood to experiment. I love making cyanotypes, which is a photography chemical on paper that you expose out in the sun. And I like the all kind of blue tone and spritzing other colors or walnut ink as it's as you're setting it up before you set it out in the sun and the different ways that it comes out. And I was kind of thinking, let's play on a piece of our 8x8 Khadi paper. This is that pack of 20 that I bought that I've decided now that I like. And I just taped that down and I pulled out one of these Stencil Club stencils from Stencil Girl, which we've already done stuff with in that maybe you may have seen it or it may be coming up. And I probably need to just soak this stencil and wash it off because of whatever it is that I've done on it. I don't even remember now what I did. But I'm kind of thinking that that might add to whatever we're doing today, and I don't even care. And then once I get this watercolor stuff on it, then it might be a good choice to go wash it off. But I thought what I would do is spritz on some water, experiment with some watercolor powders in different blues. I've got two Sketchbox ones, the navy and the turquoise, and I got a turquoise color burst. I thought we could just mix some of those in and then maybe even salt it. So let me just grab my sea salt. I've just got a container of sea salt up here. It's just big chunky sea salt. And maybe salt it because the cyanotypes that I like so much are wet cyanotypes, and they've got soap bubbles and things on top of it, making lots of lovely texture in there. And I thought, ooh, let's see if we can, replicate some of this texture. And if you're interested in cyanotypes, this is a class on my website where I made all of these. And let me tell you, you get to be an expert fast if you make like 100 of whatever you're doing. And I made hundreds of those, which I can just pull from forever. So, watercolor powders are messy, messy, messy. They will get everywhere. They'll get on your stuff. They'll contaminate your table. One time I did one of these YouTube videos and somebody yelled at me in the comments saying I didn't emphasize that loud enough. They didn't believe me. And so if you don't believe me, that might be a lesson you need to learn the hard way. Watercolor powders are messy, but I like them. So I'm going to spritz this, do watercolor powder, pick up the stencil, and we're going to let it dry with a little salt on it maybe to make some texture. And then we could come back in and maybe define some of the leaves and vines here. So let's just a day of play and experiment, just seeing. And whatever it is that I've got on top of here, which I'm sure might be like a spray, like it might be a distress stain or something, I forget. But it's going to contaminate the paper a little bit too, and I'm okay with that. It's just about experimenting. And then I will definitely go by and clean off my surface, later. Ooh, I don't know what that color's doing, but I don't know if that was what I intended. And I might take a brush and squish some of this around. Where's here we go on this one. So yeah, I might just squish a little bit of this color around. It might get under my stencil, but that's okay. Just all about the play and just seeing what can we get, doing crazy stuff like this. Okay, so let's pick it up. That might have been too much stuff on there. I'm gonna set that right on the side. And I kind of feel like what I want to do is maybe get a second piece of paper. Now that we got stuff all over the stencil, spritz it with just the stuff. So let me go grab one of those. I'll be right back. Before I do that, why don't we just salt this and let it be doing whatever it's going to do, because maybe whatever it ends up is cool. And then I'll go grab us, because it's all wet. I'm going to set it on the floor for a second anyway. And then I'll go grab us a second piece of paper. I should have put 2 pieces on here. All right, so let's let that kind of do its thing and just see what we get. It's all about experimenting. No expectations. It might look like a turd when we're done, but we're going to test it out together. Okay, let me go grab another piece of paper and I'll be right back. Okay, I've actually done a couple of these because there's so much crud on the stencil. I'm wondering what would happen if we do this a couple times. And all I'm going to do is set the stencil on our dry Khadi paper, spritz it with some water, and let's just see what it does. And kind of need like another pair of hands. Oh, okay. So that was very interesting. I feel like it needed to be even wetter, but let's put that one down. Could be a junk piece when we're done. We're experimenting here, seeing what's going to be the best one when we're finished. Maybe on this one, we could paint some of this color off of our stencil and see what we get. That might be the way to go. The paper is dry that I've started out with. I've just taped it down to an artist panel. This paint on the stencil itself is so pretty, like the stencil would be pretty as the piece of art. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Let's salt that. I'm just throwing that in water over there. And maybe we'll salt that. It might not have enough water on there to make a difference, but we'll try it. We'll try it. Oh, I could have picked the stencil up. Hello. All right. All right, very interesting. Let's see what we get there. All right, and then I'm almost wondering, do we have enough for, maybe one last test? I don't know, but why not? All right, just threw down a piece of salt. It's all right, we'll leave it all in there. And maybe I'll spritz this one lighter. And could come back with a sponge. I'm just dipping a little art sponge in water here. And maybe just coming around with the texture and seeing what that does. Just fun experiments with stencil on paper. All right, let's just pull that up, and I definitely need to wash that stencil. That one I don't know that really is even defined enough for it to be something, but it's very interesting. Okay, so just fun, different little test to try. It can be a background or something that we paint on later. I can continue adding paint to these, but we're gonna let all these dry and I'll be back. All right, so these have been drying now for a while, and I actually filmed a whole nother video in between it because I got it painted and I thought, oh goodness, this is going to take forever to dry, and I kind of wanted to paint today, and I've been painting almost every day, and oop, there was a little bit of wetness there. That's okay. I've been painting almost every day. Got some wet still in there in the really thick parts. And I have discovered that I was trying to paint every day, but I've discovered sometimes when I paint every day, then my painting just gets worse and worse. I kind of feel like, and sometimes I need to take a break, clear my mind, come back with fresh ideas, and then I get excited again. And I feel like this week, everything I did, even though I recorded it and I'm sharing it with you guys at some point, because I schedule these a little further out, I feel like it's harder. It was harder this week. Like, just harder to get to something that I loved. Harder to get things that I thought were amazing. I mean, I had fun painting, but I just felt like it was hard work today, this week. Okay, so here's the first one. I'm just kind of, it's my inspiration pieces, but I'm just moving the salt off of these. and just kind of being careful. And if the paper's wet, this paper's weird. It's that Khadi paper. If it's wet, you can kind of scrape the top layer of the paper off when you didn't intend. It's completely different than using a cold press cotton watercolor paper. But I want to use it because I've had fun on it. Look at that one. That one's kind of cool. I did not put salt on that one. And then here's this last one. And I'm kind of wondering, you know, if I had done these on regular watercolor paper instead of this Khadi cotton paper, would the stencil work would it have been different? Would I have liked it more or less? It's just fun to ponder these questions and experiment, which is why I do a lot of experimenting with you guys, because that's how we learn cool stuff. Alright, so got all the salt off. There is a lot of blue paint watercolor powder in that salt. And I usually just pour the salt back into my salt container because you can see it's got salt in there. But that's rather a dramatic variation of color there that I might not want in my main salt thing, so I might just save this in another container because I hate to throw it away. It's still good. It could still soak up color, but in that soaking up of color, it could also bleed color, and so I don't want the whole top layer of my salt container to be blue salt if I didn't need blue salt. So that's why I just kind of wiped it off into a paper towel that I can then put that in some other container in a bit. And then we can kind of look at these and see like which version did we end up liking the best, and then we could do some different things with these. So this was actually really beautiful, and we could continue mark making and painting on top of that. So that's a great background. So that one might come out again. This one's really beautiful also, and I like the colors of this one. I don't remember which order we just did these in, but I really like the colors and everything on this one quite a bit. And it reminds me of the colors that are so pretty in some of these. And they go from blue to other tones, but I like the bluey greeny tones. I really like that color tone in that. And then the original one is super dramatic. And I'm just going to make sure we got all the salt. I'm not worried about it smearing or anything. So I think these will definitely be pretty backgrounds. Maybe some different stuff. I'm going to save those for a moment. I like how dark and dramatic this one is. I'm still feeling salt everywhere. So we could paint. Like we could take white paint and a paintbrush, or you know, some paint combination, acrylic paint combination possibly, and paint these details back in. We could draw them back in with some pencil work if we wanted to. Let's see if I've got, I want a round, you know, maybe something like, this one's kind of stiff though, maybe stiffer than I want. That one's nice. This is a Rosemary & Company 2021 Merry Christmas one, but see how we can kind of paint some stuff back in here. So maybe we'll start with that and then do mark making on top of that. And it doesn't even have to be with white paint. It could be with other shades, and you could use any paint you want really. I've got some soft gray and some sage blue, which we know I like. I could also put out some white. This is the Blick matte paint, and I like matte paint, so I might just put a little bit of that out, maybe a little bit of this gray out, maybe a little bit of white. We could add some white to that and do just some little mixes. We could add a little bit of green in there if we wanted that green kind of color coming out. But let's see, I could do that. Let's just see what we got over here. Like this is a pretty color. Kind of want to keep it more neutral. I'm getting overdone here. And then we could kind of mix these up. And what I was kind of thinking was, you know, we could come back and paint in our leaves and our vines, and then we could use other pencils or pastels. You know, we could then come back in with mark making, but we can kind of just mix these so it's no one particular color. That could be a good way to do that. So it's just about playing at this point and maybe redefining our piece into, you know, whatever that stencil actually was, redefining some of those on top. And because these were watercolor powders, anywhere that they get wet, they're going to reactivate. And I realized this, and I think that could maybe add to the prettiness of the piece. So I don't mind that they're going to reactivate, but I'm mentioning it because you're going to see that and you're going to think, oh, what's it doing? But I like that. I like that interest that could add for us. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just fill this in with paint, because that was kind of the idea I had in mind when I started this project. That's kind of where I thought I was going to go today. So I'm going to fill these in and speed it up while I'm doing it and play some music. Okay, I think I'm gonna let that dry. It's not some masterpiece by any stretch of the means, but I think I'll let it dry and then we can mark make on top of that. So I'll be right back. Okay, these are mostly dry, and what I was kind of thinking was we could draw on top of this. You could do pastels and pencils and whatever it is that you think you want to use, but I did a white pencil video testing out different whites, and I thought, you know, we could just come back in and play with different details and add, you know, some extra details on the leaves with just different pencils and seeing like what worked best. That was a Prismacolor white. This is a white chalk. Oh yeah. So I like this white chalk, and it'll allow us to really get some fun details in. There's also this one that came in the little matte Pitt set of the matte graphite pencils. That is a Pitt Pastel, which might even be better than the chalk. So it is fun to kind of try out different ones and even layer them and see like which is going to be, you know, the best on your piece. And you know, you can do other colors. I just picked the white because I like the blue and white from our inspiration piece of the Cyanotype. And you can see how that watercolor activated some more after I added some paint on top of it. So that's kind of interesting to know that it keeps reactivating as you're painting. just testing out different pencils too as I'm going. But I think this one's my favorite, which is the Pitt Pastel White. I think it's my favorite now that I have kind of tried several of these. So since I know I like that Pitt Pastel the best, I might pull out my set of Pitt Pastels. That was a one-off that I had there. But I might continue to add color and detail with the Pitt Pastels as I see fit in a piece that I'm doing. I thought it'd be fun to have a few little dots in there, and I know it's Posca pen dots, so I know it's gonna activate the material I'm putting it on top of, that powder, but I'm okay with that. I just wanted some extra in there, and I could come back with like some fine lines with other acrylic pens if I thought that that would add to the piece. This is my acrylograph pens. But I could come back on top still and define things if I wanted to. And I know they'll activate the watercolor powder if you get it on there wrong, but it might give me some details that I like. I don't know, that's pretty fun right there. Are we there for today? That's pretty cool. It's completely kind of what I was thinking I was going to get, and at the same time a little bit different than I even expected. It's definitely where I wanted to go. I kind of want to see what it looks like, and then, you know, we've got the other pieces that we can then do, you know, as backgrounds and collage elements, or we could use those and paint those in differently if we think, oh, I got a good idea, but let me perfect it a little further. Then we've got the other pieces that we can kind of experiment with, and I'm just going to heat the tape up and see if I can get that tape to not really damage the edge of this, because I like it. And I want to make sure I don't pull off. Sometimes the paper does like it's supposed to, and sometimes it doesn't. And I want to not tear the paper. Now, are you kind of feeling it now? Oh my gosh. I was kind of doubting for a bit, but that removed all the doubt. Now, especially after I added all the little pencil layers in there, and we've got that crazy background, and now I can peel the tape and see the piece of art. I'm feeling it now. I kind of doubted through this process, you know, because that's what experimenting is all about. Figuring out cool stuff, doubting your moves, getting to places you kind of didn't expect. And this is where I wanted to end up, but I wasn't quite sure I was going to get there. Oh, look at that! That was ended up being a great paint day. Check it out. And you know what we could do now? We could go back and add gold details if we wanted to. I am going to save that for another day, but can you see lovely gold details added on top of that? Like we could do dots around the leaves, or I could do just some little marks on the leaves. I mean, we could do a lot with that. Okay, that ended up way cooler than I was kind of even expecting or hoping. So I hope you had fun testing out this crazy technique. And then we've got these others that we can then, you know, play with and perfect techniques and use as backgrounds and just kind of play. I may come back and do an abstract on top of it. I don't know. I'm going to save those for another day of play because that is super cool today. All right, guys, I will see you next time.